Good mixed morning. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Schenectady. I am the Reverend Wendy Bartel. When referring to me with pronouns, it's better and more respectful to use my name, as she, he, and they are not a great fit for me as a person who is both in and beyond the gender binary. I serve along with the Reverend Lynn Gardner. She and they pronouns work for Lynn. We are the co-ministers here. And to be extra clear, on this Sunday, we are queer, we are married, we are temporarily able-bodied, we are white, we are here, we are Unitarian Universalists, and we are in it for the long haul. Thank you. We love you too. And we are also unapologetic about promoting Unitarian Universalism as a place of radical hospitality, even as threats continue to emerge and manifest. You have big questions about life, about God, about humanity. So do we. Do you have big dreams about equity, inclusion, justice? So do we. Do you have big feelings about what has transpired over the past week and are worried about our democracy and our nation? Are fearful for yourself and or someone you love? Are angry that we seem to be going backwards in time rather than making a better world? So are we. So are we. We have gathered this morning, arriving here heavy-hearted or perhaps woefully sad or increasingly rageful, maybe a little dismayed, disappointment. Perhaps your shock has turned into a traumatized freeze experience. Each of you gets a gold star just for showing up today, whether in the room or on Zoom. Because no matter how you're feeling, you were courageous enough to get here, to be among this good company. Because remember, no matter how you are feeling, it matters. It matters to us. It matters to this community. And it matters that we show up for one another, for our families, and for our wider community. This is the point in the service when we often share a few announcements about upcoming events. And at this moment in our nation's history, some of us may be vacillating between wanting to leave, hide, and wanting to stay and work to protect all who are now in even more harm's way. We may think, I'm just going to stay in bed. Reasonable. Or we need to be mapping out our congregation's resources and partner with community organizations and stage the revolution right now. Also reasonable. All of that is in the room, in this circle today. So we have the impossibly hard job to hold this with you. You have the impossibly hard job to hold this with us. So let us do our best together in these coming days and weeks, and even just this hour and 15 minutes. Because I'm reminded that breathing and doing just the next right thing is a part of the journey of grief, which many of us are now on. Or I should say many more of us are now on. So today we'll share a few announcements lifting up some of the reasons why it's important that institutions like ours exist and how important it is that we help UUSS survive and thrive, knowing that we are sitting with so many feelings, so many concerns. We do this together.
There's an LGBTQ plus group that will be hosting a game night on Friday evening. On Saturday, the Buildings and Grounds team will be hosting a work party. Come for a little while and help get our spaces and gardens ready for winter. Monday the 18th, the BIPOC Authors Book Group will meet. On Sunday, November 24th, we'll include a ritual of bread communion in our service. If you'd like to bring some bread to share, contact me after the service or by email. And after the service that day, there will be the fall congregational meeting. There will be a Thanksgiving Day potluck for all who'd like to be together to share a meal in community. You can get more details about these and other activities in circuits or at the programs and events tables in the back. And this morning, on this Veterans Day weekend, we honor those who have served this country through service in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Reserves, or National Guard, as well as service as a commissioned officer in the Public Health Service, Environmental Science Services Administration, or National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. If you are a veteran, we invite you to rise or raise your hand if you're willing.
You too, Facebook. I mean, Jim. Yeah.
Thank you. We also acknowledge the family members of veterans. If you have a family member who is a veteran or who is currently serving, will you please rise or raise your hand? Yeah, thank you. With gratitude for your service and with fervent hopes that leaders can find peaceful solutions to conflicts. And now we settle more fully into our seats for our worship service, this place where we lift up that which is of worth together. And when Unitarian Universalists gather for worship and other important events, we pause to light a chalice. Originally, the flaming chalice was a two-dimensional image stamped on documents created by the then Unitarian Service Committee to help Jewish refugees escape Nazi persecution on the eve of World War II. The design had been hastily put together by the artist Hans Deutsch, himself a refugee. Deutsch was working at the direction of USC's director, Reverend Charles Joy, who believed that such a logo would make their paperwork look more official. This has become more than a symbol. It is a light of inspiration and hope held in a cup of community, love, and justice.
We breathe, we sing, we soften, and invite spaciousness. This morning, our opening hymn is number 1 in the hardback hymnal. The words will also appear on the screen. We sang this song here in this circle on Wednesday night at the end of our post-election vigil. Since then, there has already been a rise in violence, just as there was in 2016. Students, women, LGBTQ plus folks, immigrants, people of color, folks living with disabilities are already being targeted. So I have 2 requests of you as you sing this song this morning. 1, to sing with some resolve. May nothing evil cross this door, and by this door, we mean every single door. And 2, later in the song, if the metaphor of holy wine doesn't work for you for whatever reason, think of another metaphor that does. Let us rise in spirit and or in body to sing, may nothing evil cross this door.
If you would like to hear a story from a little bit closer, you are welcome to come down a little bit closer. And if you are comfy right where you are, that is great too. It is good to be together this morning. On Wednesday afternoon, Wendy and I were grateful to participate in midweek meditations led by Tamara Gaveji. Thank you, Tamara. She invited us to share in a walking meditation, and we walked slowly and mindfully above the creek and the gardens as we made our way along the building. As we walked, I heard geese calling. I couldn't see the geese through the bright leafy trees, but I pictured them flying in a V across the sky. And that inspired this story called Flying Together. Sam was a young goose, a Canada goose. He had hatched out of his egg last spring. At first, he had had soft yellow and brown downy feathers. There was a lot for a baby goose to learn. They had to learn how to stay near their parents who protected them from foxes and raccoons. They had to learn how to swim and how to tip in the water to find delicious plants to eat. As Sam got bigger, he had grown new feathers, beautiful, brown, and shiny, and learned how to spread and flap his wings. He'd learned how to honk, and he loved to call to other geese across the lake and to hear them honking back. One exciting day, when he was 3 months old, his parents taught them how to fly. It was amazing. It was amazing to learn how to fly. Landing back in the water took a little practice, though. But soon he and all the young geese were taking off and flying and landing with relative ease. All summer long, they swam and ate, honked, and flew together. As fall came, the days got shorter, and many days and nights were colder. One morning, there was frost and ice on the grass around the lake. Sam's mother told him that soon all the geese would fly south for the winter. "What do you mean?" asked Sam. "Will we be moving to the lake that's just over the hill?" No, said his mom. "We will be flying further than you've ever flown before. It will take many days, and we'll find places to rest at night." Sam felt afraid. What if he couldn't do it? What if it was too long and too hard? Sam began to cry. His mother moved in close, and she made soft, little, comforting goose noises. When his tears stopped, she said, "Sam, look at me. It's okay to be afraid." No goose could make this journey alone. And so we fly together. Those of us who are stronger will fly in the front, and you can fly behind where the air currents from our wings will help support you. We'll take turns. When we're tired, we'll rest. We'll find food. We'll do everything we can to take care of each other and to protect each other. Some of us have made long and hard journeys before, and we can share stories along the way. Most importantly, my little goose, know that you do not have to do this alone. The next day, geese from all around the lake began to gather. Sam and the other young geese were nervous and excited. Groups of geese stretched and flapped their wings, honking. They took off from the water, flying high into the sky. They called to the others. And then it was Sam's family's turn. They honked and flapped. Sam watched them taking off and felt a rush of courage, remembering what his mother had said. They would fly together. Honking loudly, Sam flapped his strong wings and flew to join them, ready for the long journey ahead. And that's what we'll do. We'll fly together. We'll take turns. We'll rest. And we will do our best to take care of and protect each other. Dear ones, you have a place in the family of things. The interconnected and complicated family of all that is. This exquisite and challenging and sorrow-filled beingness. We have each found our way together here on a November morning. Will you breathe with me? Each breath welcoming in air that has moved over oceans, has blown across glaciers and shimmered off of desert sands. This next breath may be the exhalation of a hummingbird, or include oxygen from an olive grove in Egypt, rice fields in Vietnam, or maple trees along a river in New Hampshire. It has been a hard week, and so we pause to breathe together, feeling the weight of our bodies held by the solidity of the earth beneath us. You might allow the muscles in your face to soften, your jaw to unclench, your shoulders to gently roll back and lower down. Maybe your eyes are so tired from too many tears that have already fallen, tired from holding them back. You can allow your eyes to close or your gaze to soften. There is space for you and your tears here. If you have been shaking with anger and frustration, or trembling with worry for yourself and those you love, know that you are not alone. May your next breath and the one after that serve to steady your shaking hands and your trembling heart. There is space for you and all you are feeling here. And knowing that we are connected, we invite some spaciousness in our hearts for the tenderness among us, opening our hearts to the challenges and losses that many of us are facing, the diagnoses or deaths, the plans that didn't work out, broken relationships. There is so much that weighs on our tender hearts. May all those in need find healing and comfort, connection and care. May those of us who can notice those in need and take our turn. And meanwhile, the world goes on, says the poet, bringing us another sunrise, another day in which to love, another day to choose kindness, another day to act with courage. Let us rest in the quiet together as we breathe, knowing that we are not alone.
I have typed and erased and typed and erased some more, wondering both what we could say at this terrible moment and also wondering how to say all we want to say in the structure of a sermon, feeling a sense of urgency given what we are facing. So to cover a few things in a very short time frame. 1, I am not at all certain that the election was conducted without tampering. 2, patriarchy and white supremacy are harming the whole world. 3, we're going to need one another more than we know. And 4, love can be an antidote to fear. For months, dozens of people in this congregation worked really hard, along with so many others, to get folks to participate in our democracy. Well done. Truly. Many of us even dared hope for a new vision of a country where more people prosper, where healthcare is accessible, where there's a clear path to citizenship, where truth, ethics, and a moral compass still matter. And Wednesday, many of us were devastated as we saw the numbers that were being reported for the presidential election and a white madman whose vision is narrow, greedy, and harmful, who has allegedly won. Wednesday evening, we hosted a vigil here, making space for the fear, the profound sorrow, the simmering rage, the shock, the worry, the frustration, all of it. It was space to remember that we are not alone. We are already mourning and fearing the devastation that is likely to be attempted. Those gathered shared our feelings with one another at ritual stations. We listened as others shared with us. Over here, some expressed anger through drumming. And over there, some folks expressed sorrow with tears and dropping a stone into a vase. That vase is over there. Over there, in that general direction, some people expressed fear and numbness by gathering in a circle and just being present with one another. Some folks chose to visit multiple stations. We sang. We shared poetry. We sat and reflected quietly. We lit candles. We sang some more. Processing all of these feelings will continue to come in waves. Feel those feelings, even the uncomfortable ones. Give yourself permission to feel them anywhere and everywhere. Share your feelings with people you care about and ask them to share theirs with you. And sometime soon, while we can still feel whatever we are feeling, we can't get mired in them. Held captive by dismay, held back by despair, overwhelmed by shock, stuck in the quicksand of existential dread. Heterosexist patriarchy and white supremacy culture thrive when we stay stuck in those places. And it's important that we resist those systems and those structures which demean some and privilege others. So feel the feels and carry on. We need all of us if we're going to survive these next 4 years. Feelings are a signpost of what we love. As named in our chalice lighting words, the heart still and not remembers it knows how to love. It knows it is not alone. Author, historian, and activist Rebecca Solnit reminds us that what authoritarians want and a helpful strategy for what can come next. This week she posted on social media these words. They want you to feel powerless and to surrender and to let them trample everything, and you are not going to let them. You are not giving up, and neither am I. The fact that we cannot save everything does not mean we cannot save anything, and everything we can save is worth saving. You may need to grieve or scream or take time off, but you have a role no matter what. And right now, good friends and good principles are worth gathering in. Remember what you love. Remember what loves you. Remember in this tide of hate what love is. The pain you feel is because of what you love, she says. Remember what you love. What loves you. What love is. Powerful, powerful words of wisdom. When you arrived today, you hopefully received a piece of paper and maybe something to write with. You probably need to share the writing implements around the circle with someone nearby. Folks on Zoom, you've been invited to find a piece of paper and something to write with. And if you didn't, you can raise a hand and an usher will be happy to bring a piece of paper to you. You hold on to it. Yep. Couple more folks in the back over there. With that paper and with the writing implement you have access to now or in a few moments, we invite you to write down a few answers to that, responses to that. What you love, what loves you, and what love is. If you need to change what to who, go ahead, but what you love, what loves you, and what love is. This isn't meant to be a thought process. This is meant to be your own gut responses. What comes up right away? What bubbles up in your heart? What you love, what loves you, and what love is. Just write down a few things and then pass your writing implement to somebody nearby if they need it. Now, of course, you can add more later. And if you fill up the paper later, you can add more paper. Hang it on the refrigerator or a bathroom window mirror. Put it in a purse or a wallet or a backpack. Create some art with these words when you can be reminded. You don't have to get all those answers now. In fact, I expect most of you won't. What you love, what loves you, and what love is will be useful to us in the coming days, in the coming weeks, the coming months, the coming years. This point in the service might be as far as your heart can take you this morning. Honor that. Grounding ourselves in the strength of love is already an act of resistance. Sit in this knowing. This next part is for the folks who want and need to talk about some really hard things now. And we will be available after the service if you need a pastoral conversation, if you find yourself struggling with the content or where we are in the world right now. But in honor of our religious ancestors and many of our own actual biological and kin connections, and the fact that January will be here way too soon, we need to talk about some hard things together. But we can do that here. We talk about hard things all the time.
On Wednesday morning, the president of our denomination, the Unitarian Universalist Association, the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, shared a message in which she said, "I want to invite us all back to what we learned in our earliest understandings of what humanity itself means. We draw our purpose from the call to honor and uphold the non-negotiable sacredness of each and every person, of earth, and of all beings, bound up together in an abiding love that rests in the call to justice. We will rest in the strength of our covenants and bring that love, generosity, sacred witness, and values-driven interdependence to bear as we continue toward a future where our liberation is collective and all our people can count themselves whole." All our people can count themselves whole. Dictatorships thrive when people are too afraid to speak out, to act up, to refuse to do their bidding. In last week's service, we mentioned Timothy Snyder and his book on tyranny, 20 lessons from the 20th century, and how important it is to refuse to obey in advance. Don't teach power what it can get away with. If you haven't heard last week's sermon, you can find a recording on our website. One of the lessons from this book that we want to name this week is to remember professional ethics. Snyder says it's hard to subvert a rule of law state without lawyers, or to hold show trials without judges. Authoritarians need obedient civil servants, and concentration camp directors seek businessmen interested in cheap labor. We should all be fussy and crying. Yes. Snyder goes on to name several key men appointed to Hitler, many of them lawyers, judges, and businessmen, and the horrendous things that they were responsible for. And what was even more striking was what Snyder writes next. If lawyers had followed the norm of no execution without trial, if doctors had accepted the rule of no surgery without consent, if businessmen had endorsed the prohibition of slavery, if bureaucrats had refused to handle paperwork involving murder, then the Nazi regime would have been much harder pressed to carry out the atrocities by which we remember it. Choosing to live from our Unitarian Universalist values of equity, justice, generosity, interdependence, transformation, pluralism with love at the center can be hard. And in the coming days, we will very likely face challenges. And we need those values, no matter what. Most of us will likely, maybe just first observe these challenges. And we know that some of you have already started seeing hateful things happening in your workplace, in schools. We have certainly seen it online. Maybe you read the story about the mass text messages that are targeting Black people all across the country. The FBI and Department of Justice are investigating. We were alerted by someone connected with this congregation who has already been impacted. Perhaps you have seen or heard the men exclaiming, "Your body, my choice." This is reprehensible and likely just the tip of the iceberg of what's to come. We also know that some of us are already targets, have been targets for months or years or our lifetime or our ancestors' lifetimes, directly or indirectly by the ignorance spewed, the threats spoken, the plans named or carried out. And New York is not a guaranteed safe zone for so many reasons. Yes, overall, some things went well. But if you look at a county by county map, and specifically the counties near here, not so much. And that means that even more of us may be, or at least feel, unsafe right now. Remembering that there is a difference between uncomfortable and unsafe. Some of us are unsafe right now. This month's theme is commitment to living our UU values. We chose this theme this summer because we knew that no matter what happened with the election, living our values matters, no matter what. In the recent decision by delegates at our denomination's June General Assembly, our bylaws were changed to name specific values, to define that word, and then to name what that value calls us to do. Equity is one of those named values. The new bylaw states, equity. We declare that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. It is a covenant, which means it's also aspirational. We know we aren't there yet, and we want to be. Justice is one of those named values too. Justice. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, our association, and society at large. If we think about what has happened throughout history and even in our lifetimes with authoritarian or totalitarian or fascist or communist regimes, equity and justice cease to exist. The people in power demonize groups of people and incite fear and violence against them. Pogroms are carried out. Doctors do experiments on unconsenting humans. Officers torture and murder alleged dissidents. Bureaucrats push paper and call it just doing their job. Some neighbors turn away, afraid that they may be targeted next. And today, sitting in this circle or connected through our Zoom sanctuary, we have at this moment the opportunity to consider our ethics, our values, the things our parents and grandparents may have taught us or that we learned in school or religious teachings, or that were teachings that we learned through our professions. What ethics will you uphold? What teachings will guide you today and in the very near future? How will we remind one another when the pressure or the threats are imminent? We invite and encourage you to spend some time this week considering under what circumstances it would be toughest to maintain that integrity of values-inspired action. And remember, we won't be doing this alone.
Our Unitarian Universalist faith teaches us to care for one another and the earth. We may need to practice this at a deeper level than we have yet imagined. Those who have expertise in resisting abuse, oppression, authoritarians, and so forth promote solidarity. We might think about the ways that we are connected, the ways that we as Unitarian Universalists might talk about solidarity as interdependence. We join together because we recognize that what happens to some of us can happen to all of us. Dr. King called it the inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. John Lewis said to get in good trouble, necessary trouble, and redeem the soul of America. In an interview about her new book, Adrienne Marie Brown says, "Let's course correct ourselves towards a vision of the world where love is at the center of how we shape our policy, economy, our relationships to the earth, our relationships to each other." Solidarity doesn't require that we all think exactly the same or have the same exact strategies. It does require some courage to show up for others, to listen to painful stories, to speak out against the bullies, to be willing to be changed by what we hear, and to commit to living our values out loud. Now, to build our solidarity muscles, we may need to stretch, right? To warm up by considering what our values are, that which we have as part of our identity, and then get curious about how they might hold up under pressure. Then we may need to be willing to do some heavier lifting, as muscles don't grow without being challenged. For some of us, that heavier lifting will be to examine our privilege and figure out how to use it for good. For some of us, it will be letting go of the certainty we thought life offered everyone and realize that for many, the only thing certain is uncertainty. For some, it will be living our lives authentically, even as bigotry, bias, and discrimination are threatened upon us at nearly every hour, while others of us are willing to get uncomfortable, defending the rights of others to simply exist. We know that we are all more free when more of us are free. And while solidarity is hard work, fascism is so much harder. The good news? Because there is some. We've got each other. We don't have to work out alone. And we don't have to wait until January. In fact, we can't wait until then. We need to start right now, getting clear on our values, on the ethics we have, and the promise ourselves to uphold them as best we can each day. This week, we've leaned into the advice of a poem by writer, poet, and storyteller John Riddell.
Many of us feel lost right now. We might feel like giving up. Those are reasonable responses to what is happening. Let this congregation be your North Star, a place to find your way back home to yourself. Please don't give up. Please don't give up. It's okay to rest for a bit and let the stronger geese fly in the front for a while. But don't give up. We need you. Yes, you and your particular gifts. The front geese will need to rest at some point too. We have always needed one another, for we are interdependent.
And in that same post mentioned earlier, Rebecca Solnit reminds us that there is no alternative to persevering. That does not require you to feel good. You can keep moving, whether it's sunny or raining. Take care of yourself, she says. And remember that taking care of something else is an important part of taking care of yourself. Because you are interwoven with the 10 trillion things in this single garment of destiny that has been stained and torn, but is still being woven and mended and washed. Love can be a mighty antidote to the poison of fear. So keep coming back to the people and practices and communities that help you remember what you love and what loves you. Remember deep in your bones what love is. And no matter what, hold on to the truth of this Unitarian Universalist faith, that we, every single one of us, are held in a love that will not let us go. And for it is already so. Amen. Namaste, and blessed be. We do not know what the immediate future holds. What we do know is that we need one another to co-create the world we still know is possible, the world in which we still say yes to life, to truth, and to love. Let us rise in body and or in spirit to sing just as long as I have breath. Feel. Make space for grieving, for rage, for worry. Don't stay there. Be kind to yourself and others. Breathe. Soften. And let that soft animal of your body love what it loves. Do not obey in advance. Remember your ethics and values. Commit to living our Unitarian Universalist values, especially. And keep sending out love, 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 love. No matter what seeks to destroy us, let love be the powerful antidote and motivator and elixir, that which binds us together in mystery and wonder and hope.